Hello and welcome to this first video on why DevOps. By the end of this video, the goal is to cover what value proposition DevOps brings and what are the advantages of working in a DevOps way. Let's start off with a brief introduction. My name is Tarun Arora. I'm obsessed with high quality working software, continuous delivery, and agile practices. I work for a company called Avanade in the UK. Avanade is a digital innovator, and I lead the DevOps practice for them in the UK. I'm a Microsoft MVP in Visual Studio DevTools and have recently written a book on doing DevOps with TFS 2015. Over the past few months, I've had the pleasure of traveling across 21 countries, and should you want to follow my travels, then follow my blog on Out of Office Traveler. All right, so let's get started. Now, software is more than just code. That's been established. The question to you is, how many people in your organization does it take to create software? Now, at any given point in time, you would have programmers, you would have software testers, you would have business analysts, maybe architects, and if it's a really big program, then you may have project managers and other roles within the organization creating that software. Now, in this wave of doing software development in a better way, over the last 10 years, you might have heard a lot about Agile and Scrum. Now, a lot of the companies in the past have been doing sequential, waterfall-driven deliveries, and they're painful. They take a long time. The business priorities change by the time software arrives. But with Agile, Agile's taught us that it's easier to manage the chaos, the changing requirements, by creating self-organizing cross-functional teams, iteratively creating incremental software, focusing on business value, and engaging and collaborating with the end customer. Now, Agile is fantastic in creating ready-to-ship software. But remember, the software hasn't yet been shipped. It's only been created. So then the next question to you is, what is the value of software that's created but not deployed to your end users? Zero. I mean, the reason I caveat that is at least your users can log on to a test environment and give you feedback. So maybe a little bit more than zero, but they still can't use the software on a daily basis. It still doesn't solve their business problems. Then the next question is, who does it take in your organization to get the software out in the hands of users that it's meant for? Now, it's different from people that created the software. It's about getting it out in the hands of the people that need to use it. And you would have various roles within the organization contributing to that, like infrastructure architects, security, operations, database administrators, server administrators, release manager, production support, third line support, and the list can go on depending on the size and scale of the organization that you work in. And how do these people and these different teams work together today? This way, where the people that create the software just shove it over the wall to the other side, and then the people that are supposed to deliver that software, release that software, kind of think they know what needs to be done, but don't really know what needs to be done. And in this wall of confusion, who loses? The end customer. So, what I want to emphasize here is these two separate teams working in isolation creates a silo where they don't share the same objectives. The people on the left creating the software have KPIs that will measure their success based on the speed at which they can create the change. The people on the right, the operations teams, are rewarded for the stability that the environments can run with. So this paradox of speed versus stability creates this silo and this dysfunction where they both have opposite goals to work against. So are you great at DevOps? The question, it needs to be asked because in your organization, you might already be doing DevOps or some kind of DevOps. So the first question I want to ask you is, how do you feel when you hear the word release? Is it anxiety? Does it feel like a ceremony? Does it feel like an event where it only happens once in a year or maybe a couple of times in a year, and it requires a lot of people to collaborate, to sign off, to order pizza because people have to work long hours in the evening to make sure that they take the systems down and do the release and then bring back the systems online. Um, and how long does it take to get the release out there? And I'm going to caveat that by saying, how long in your organization does it take to get an unchanged package out into production? Now, if it's unchanged package, clearly it's gone through the process of value checks, quality checks, process checks. So it should just be a matter of getting out there. But what you would realize in organizations where there is too much process is that even if nothing's changed, getting a release out can take days, weeks, and in certain sad scenarios, even months, where someone would have to create a change request. That change request will go to a central operations team who would read the release notes about that release. Then they may approve it in a couple of days' time, after which it needs to be deployed to a test environment, but that deployment needs to be done manually. An environments team needs to be engaged to do that. The deployment fails. They have to talk to the developers to figure out why it failed. And then they have to repeat the same exercise in UAT and then in pre-prod. And then production needs to be safeguarded, so you have to raise another change. So really the best way of measuring how streamlined or where there are bottlenecks within the process for release in your organization are, it's worth trying to release an unchanged package into production again, and it will surprise you in the amount of waste that you may have in your process. The next question I need to ask, or you should ask yourself to see if you're already doing DevOps, is how much time do your operations team spend after release goes live just firefighting, just making sure that all the environment specific issues are resolved, all the release specific issues are resolved. Um, and if you're a great DevOps uh, organization, then the answers probably will be release means nothing to us because the release is pretty much going out throughout the day. The increments of releases going out are so small that we don't even notice that it's gone out. You have processes like automated build, automated testing, automated deployment. You have automated monitoring. You have infrastructure being provisioned automatically. You have self-healing infrastructure and more automation. Wherever you identify a process that's manual, you make sure you have some teams collaborating to make it a hands-free process. Now, if the answer is you're not doing all of this, then chances are you aren't really doing DevOps. So what is DevOps? Let's try and establish a term that we all can carry forward in the course. Now, DevOps is not a separate team. If in your organization you hired a couple of automation engineers and you branded them as the DevOps team, you're doing it wrong. Because now you're creating further silos in the organizations where the developers would think automation is not their problem. The operations would think the automation is not their problem. And everything is this DevOps team's problem who don't understand the development and who now don't understand the operations. So creating a separate team of DevOps is not the way to do it. DevOps is really the union of people, processes, and tools. DevOps in isolation is not a tool that you can go and buy from the market. DevOps is just not a process that you can inherit and run with. It's the union of people, process, and tools to deliver continuous value to customers. And that is the definition that I want you to take away from this course. So DevOps drives good practices. And here, let's look at what good practices it drives. First off, it drives a cohesive team, a team that's working together, a team that has the shared objectives now. It's not a team that now needs to figure out whether speed is their priority or stability is their priority. It's a joined-up team now who need to make sure that they have a production-first mindset, that the live side is always available, but at the same time, you can take the feedback from production. You can run with an agile and a Scrum frame of mind to deliver changes that your customers need out quicker, sooner, faster, pretty much all the time. What it also drives is a culture of a modular architecture, moving away from the heterogeneous architecture that we've been working with over the past few years. Um, because the problem with heterogeneous architecture is every time you try and do a release, you have to take the full application down, or you would disrupt everything that's happening in the application in order to release something. But in a more modular architecture, in a more service-oriented architecture, in a more microservices-oriented architecture, you can release components without really impacting the other parts of the applications running as services. So DevOps drives that architectural pattern and practice as well. What it also drives is strong source control. It brings the developers and the operations people together to work in the same application lifecycle management toolset that the development teams use. The infrastructure is coded up as just scripts, and it goes through the same source control, same continuous integration, same testing cycle as the code that is being created to run the application. And now that they're being done in conjunction means that your infrastructure changes are always aligned to the software changes. Um, and what it also helps foster is the culture of continuous delivery. And that's the ultimate thing, right? It's always about delivering new changes faster, um, better, quicker. In summary, DevOps is really the union of people, process, and tools to continuously deliver value to customers.